another edition of Science Unplugged. We come to you from the Alan Alda Center for Communicating Science, and it's based out of Stony Brook University. And we're excited for you to join us today. We're going to learn a lot about science, and the main mission for our show here is to communicate science to lay people such as yourself. It's kind of just to demystify all the things. What's going on, pup? We got an eccentric cast of characters in front of and behind the cameras, and you'll get to meet a lot of them. And sitting right next to me is actually Steve and Jarrett. How you doing, Steve?
Good to be here.
Should we be worried about an imminent dog attack?
I think it's under control.
Okay, that's good to know.
Pretty sweet dog, so.
So some of you might recognize Steven, you might not. We're trying to figure out how we're going to put all this stuff together, but Steven was actually a guest of ours not too long ago, and Steve, I've got to ask you.
Yep, go for it.
You've sat in the host chair before, you've sat in the guest chair. Which is your favorite?
Ooh, that's a good question. I like them both. The guest is fun because I get to talk about my science. The host is fun because you get to learn stuff that I didn't know. And I'm really looking forward to this because there's so much science that I don't know, and it's a great chance to learn. So.
Well, it's funny you mention that because if I had to give an answer to that question, I would say I much prefer sitting in the host chair because I get to just be as ignorant as I possibly can be, which is very, very easy for me. But when you're sitting in the guest chair, you kind of actually got to be on top of your stuff.
Yeah.
So without further ado, we have a wonderful guest with us today, and her name is Wendy Hom.
Rhymes with Tom.
Rhymes with Tom. I can't tell you how many times I've butchered that, but rhymes with Tom, Wendy Hom. Wendy, how are you doing today?
Hi, nice to meet you guys. Well, I've met you guys multiple times.
Exactly.
Yeah, because you were a host.
Yes.
You may have noticed that we're starting to get our legs under us here, but to get us started here, everybody's got fun science that we do, and we're all super excited to share it with you. So we're kind of playing musical chairs right now, but we're here to hear about Wendy's research today. So I got to ask you, Wendy, what it is you're cooking up in the lab these days? So
it's interesting you say cooking, because it's a lot like cooking. So what you guys have eaten Jello before, or seen Jello. So what I work with is something called hydrogels, and a perfect example of this is Jello. So you could think of a soft, squishy material like a lot of water. And what I work with is something called a hydrogel, and it's made up of 3 different things. And what we're trying to do is make it temperature sensitive.
Make it temperature sensitive.
Yeah.
Hydrogels. Lots of things going on here.
Mm-hmm.
So why would we want to be able to control the temperature in something similar to Jello, and what could we actually use it for?
So this wouldn't be used for eating, right? Because it doesn't really
Makes
matter
sense.
unless you're really into culinary
Warm Jello
experiments.
doesn't really work very well for me, so I'm going to move away from that. I know, right? Not too hot.
So straight to it, the hydrogel, what we want to do is make it stronger and temperature sensitive. And what we mean by that is that if you change the temperature from, let's say, room temperature to putting it on your skin, you're able to make the strength of it different, so you can deliver medication.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So now we're talking drug delivery
Yes,
here.
yes.
Interesting, interesting.
So
what kind of drugs, if you don't mind me asking, would this be, more efficacious for, or would, help in their delivery
what?
system? Efficacious, so efficiency, working better, improving.
I didn't think I would have to call jargon police on the host. Come on now.
We're trying to, cut back on the jargon. If you see the jargon police, one of us might get locked up today. It's like word vomit. We can't get the scientist out of us sometimes. So efficacious, big, word of the day, hashtag it, I don't know. So what kind of drugs would we be interested in delivering in this kind of way?
So to step it back a little bit, since I mentioned putting it on the skin, so you can think of it as a Band-Aid. So for bringing drugs, you want to basically use maybe like pain relieving medication or maybe some sort of antibiotic. And since right now a lot of the research is done like at the bench, it's very fundamental right now, we haven't tested drugs yet. But we'll probably get to that after we get to the part where we make it temperature sensitive and stronger.
Interesting.
Okay, so you're like trying to create essentially a better Band-Aid? Is that the idea?
That's essentially what it is.
Okay. And would it be like a Band-Aid where you would cover the wound, or would it be like, I kind of have envisions of like something you would paint on your skin, like a liquid Band-Aid, or what actually?
So there's different types. The one I'm working on would be the one that you put on, but it's interesting you say that you can paint it on. There's also some gels that you can inject. So if it's temperature sensitive, it's like a liquid form, and then you can put it on. Once it reaches a certain temperature, it can form a solid.
Yeah, cool. So how far along are you guys in this process now? You had said that you're not ready to start with actual drug delivery, but you guys must be well on your way to trying to be able to regulate the temperature in these hydrogels.
Yes.
So it's HYDRA gels.
Oh,
or
hydro, like water.
Oh.
Gel made up of water.
Because I'm thinking like a 3 dragon.
Oh, no.
Thing. Okay, makes sense.
No, it's not like a Pokemon. Yes.
Bingo. So you're on your way now. So how close do you guys think you're getting to maybe starting to incorporate some drugs into this?
So right now we are able to make the strength a little stronger. So if you think of gel, you think of something really weak.
Yes.
We're able to improve the strength of the gel. But right now we're working out the composition to try to make it so it's temperature sensitive. So right now it's very strong because it has a lot of components in it. But right now it's like pretty much not changing. So it's staying strong the whole time. And we don't want it to be like that.
So what do you mean by strong? Because I'm thinking like if you have a Band-Aid, right, and you put it on, wouldn't you want it kind of bendable and flexible?
So that's something different.
Okay.
So it's great you point that out. So like flexibility is a little different from strength. So if you think of hydrogels, let's go pretend that we're like zooming in into a hydrogel. So you think of like this clear jello-like thing, and there's a lot of little chains. So you could think of like a mess of like a jungle gym type of thing, and they're connected. So
And this is kind of like would polymer be the right
yeah,
word?
polymer is
Okay.
exactly. So it's like made up of like we have a polymer, we have a temperature sensitive polymer, the ones that's supposed to change, and we have a natural polymer. So a lot of these hydrogels, you want it to be something good for the body.
So I got a question now. So I know that a lot of plastics, like a Poland Spring water bottle. I mean, those are all made out of polymer type material. Is your polymer obviously different from like what makes your polymer different from like the polymers we'd see in plastic? And
That's
stuff like
actually
that?
a great question. So the pollen that we have is called alginate. So it's something that comes from a seaweed. Yeah.
Seaweed.
So
Oh,
alginate,
algae. Okay,
yeah,
makes
and
sense.
it might, if you guys are familiar with food, it's actually used in a lot of like food processes and cakes and making those gels.
Oh, yeah.
So then it's using that gelling process to make something that we can use in medicine.
Cake Band-Aids. I kind of like.
Yes.
That's it.
I would use a cake.
Yeah, cake Band-Aids.
So who would use, like eventually when you get it to the point where it's a product that people would use, who was your target? Like what kind of application would this be for?
I was thinking of using it for burns, like not the severe burns that you would need skin grafts, but burn victims where you don't have to, where you could put just a little medication so they just have to cover the wound and keep it kind of hydrated. Other than that, like if it's something that's more severe, you couldn't use it on it.
All right, so I got another question for you now, Wendy. As scientists, we start doing a lot of research projects with the idea that they'll be translational. So, at Stony Brook, we do a lot of basic science research where it might not have some applications. In this instance, it sounds like you guys have a pretty great application in mind. Did this research start with the application in mind, or is this kind of something you stumbled into while you were just doing basic science research about these hydrogels?
So what I'm doing is basic science, but the idea started from application. Cool. So a lot of us in our group, we work with soft materials. So a lot of it's like very soft gels, and the goal is with any sciences, even if it's basic, you want to find a way to incorporate it, even if it's not your gel specifically, it's to add to the body of work. Because a lot of other people are working in hydrogels, and we want to see how different components and better understand how things interact to make a better hydrogel.
Really cool stuff. So, another question for you, Wendy. I'm just going to go out on a limb here. This is a big assumption, which is always a dangerous thing to do. I'm a dangerous guy.
We know.
I know, it kind of has
It's
a
that
little
hat.
creepy, a little creep factor coming in. I doubt little Wendy, when she was a wee lass,
I didn't grow much.
didn't think that, when you're in first grade, I need to grow up and work on hydrogels. How did you kind of find yourself working in this stuff?
So a thing is, I would say that I have to thank my teachers. Most of my teachers really pushed me towards science. They made everything really interesting. And I would say Bill Nye the Science Guy was like a big thing. He was always doing things. I wanted to work on something that I can see. And so I did many different types of research, but this is something, like with hydrogel, you can play with it. It's fun to, when you actually make it, you can handle something. And when you're done with it, you can break it in your hand. Because a lot of my testing, I get to destroy it. But if I have extra samples, then I can play with it myself in the lab.
I should join you because I destroy things on a regular basis. This is pretty great.
And so you asked me where did it come from.
Yeah.
So I was a pretty clumsy person, and I still kind of am. And so I would get injured really easily. So I always wanted to look for ways of maybe trying to improve the healing process. Cool. And so I've seen like these people that are able to make seeds, stem cells, and grow back a pinky. And I was like in a person, and that was pretty fascinating. That was actually in a cell molecular biology class. Cool. So it was just classes I've taken, teachers I've interacted with.
Very neat, very neat.
So what's it like in a day? Give me like what is Wendy's day in the lab like? Because you've talked about making these and doing the various tests, but like what do you do on a daily when you go into the lab?
So every day is kind of different. So these gels, they can take either 1 week to make, 3 weeks, or 5 weeks, depending on what composition I want to make it. So like as you mentioned, cooking, right? So the polymers come in powders. Okay. So it's a lot of like measuring and mixing the amounts we want.
Like instant oatmeal kind of thing?
Kind of, except I don't have to heat it. like anything instant moment, usually want it to be heated, but some gels you can actually heat it to make the process to form the gel. But for me, you basically just measure the components, like mix them like one by one so that you have them mixed evenly. And then what we do is we put them in a petri dish. You guys have seen petri dishes
Yes.
before. And then we let it set overnight. And then after that, I mentioned the temperature sensitive component. That last component we add. So we let it sit in it so that it can slowly incorporate into the gel. And so that would take 3 weeks if I wanted a certain percentage, or 5 weeks if I wanted the other percentage.
So what do you do when you're waiting?
The other times, well, what I'm maybe making other reading papers, looking at data that I like doing experiments, but not too much looking at my data. So I have like data I have just like collected that I need to just slowly just pick at.
You don't have bad data until you analyze it.
Yes.
And that's when you find
Then you
out.
feel
where
like
Yeah.
it's all
exactly.
bad.
So
It's
you just
like-
hide behind it.
Yeah.
So you brought up something interesting, and it's kind of stuck in my head. You said you received these polymers that you use to make these hydrogels, and they come in powder form. So now I'm envisioning Jello that's kind of one big piece, and then grains of sand, like powder, that it comes as it comes in. So what kind of initiates or causes this change? Because I'm just thinking magic in my head that takes this powder and then turns it into this completely different substance. Is there like a chemical you
There
need
is
to
a
add?
magic component.
There is a
Yes,
magic
yes, there is a
component.
magic component. So
Very cool.
I mentioned powders already.
Yeah.
So with alginate, I'll use that as the first example because that's the main gel. So if you think of Jello, all you do is just put powder, you put it in hot water, and you mix it.
Yeah.
That's like a one-step quick thing.
Okay.
But with the alginate gels, what they need is like what they call ions. So if you think of ions, we could think of calcium.
I've heard of
Calcium
ions.
2+.
Yep.
So with these gels, you can use different what they call divalent. So number 2, di.
Okay.
Yeah,
Get
you
with
use
the
about.
jargon,
I
please.
saw
Get
I
with
saw
the
the
jargon,
sign.
All right. So for those of you who are new to this, we have this sign, Jargon Police, and when our guest or our host gets a
Yes.
little too far off into the science-y world, we'll hold this up just as a reminder to explain to us what you mean by that. So
Yes.
does divalent count as a?
I think divalent counts. We don't actually know what the consequences of the jargon police yet. All I know is that it strikes the fear of God into me.
Basically, it's
So-
just a reminder to explain us again.
Where were we? So we were talking about powders and how we changed them into, or the polymers that are in powder, and they changed into these hydrogels. And calcium, which is
Calcium
in
2+.
2+, which is an ion, so it's kind of has a charge
Charge
to
of
it.
2.
Charge of 2. Oh, so that's where
The
di
divalent.
from 2
Yeah.
and valent
Yeah.
refers to the charge.
And if it's trivalent, it would be 3.
3,
Yeah.
okay. So now we're learning words and stuff. Neat.
So-
So you were saying, I'm sorry.
It's okay. No, so our alginate gel requires calcium to be added to it. So if you think of alginate, you could think of like the polymer chains. They're just like a bunch of just wiggly things just floating around. And when by itself, it doesn't do anything. But when you have it in a environment of water and you add these calcium ions to it, you could think of the calcium ions as kind of like a reason to hold hands. So all of these alginate chains just start to hold up, and you form that huge like jumbled network. So that basically, and you add water to it, and it will swell.
Cool.
So that's the hydrogel.
So like the calcium is kind of like holding it together. That's the bridge that holds the
It's
chains.
like the little junction points.
Okay.
So I'm going to go out. This is Greg Carbonetti's going to try chemistry. Watch out, everybody. So I think of calcium. I think of milk, because there's lots of calcium in milk. But if I were to say pour milk on this polymer, it's not going to cause the same kind of reaction because the calcium in the milk isn't divalent, or it's not charged.
It might be part of something. So I'm not familiar with the milk. So the calcium
okay.
itself is like by itself. It's just the ion. And we have like, just to make it a little more complicated, we have something else that kind of takes up extra calcium ions. So you just don't have calcium ions floating around. So only the calcium ions that are available go directly to the alginate.
Cool.
While milk probably has a lot of other proteins and other like.
And it would just kind of
things
gum
in
up
it.
the
Yeah,
works, if
yeah.
you will. All right, cool. Very cool.
Is there a particular reason that you're using calcium, or could you use, because thinking like the periodic table, there are a lot of things. Is calcium useful, or
It's just that a lot of
other than just being the bridge? Or there's not a...
There's people I think barium people have used too, but calcium is the primary one to use. And I'm following like a method that like this works, so we've been using that.
That makes sense. Why reinvent the wheel if you don't have to?
So we've got hydrogels. We've been working on polymers, little divalents. Cool applications. You know, hopefully in the future we're going to be able to use them as almost band-aids or drug delivery systems, which is really cool stuff. But I got to ask you, Wendy, what is it that drives you on a daily basis? Like, what is it about this research that you love?
So for me, I guess it's like being able to touch what I'm working with and realizing that whatever I'm working with could translate eventually, hopefully, to someone that could help somebody. So again, like it started off pretty selfish, like, oh, wounds, like how can I fix myself? But then you see on the news where there's a lot of other people that have been through a lot more injuries. And then like with my baby, I have a baby, like gave birth in December. So like she scratches herself. Sometimes like, is there a way, if she got more injured, is there a way to help, like let's say babies or some other population that's not really good with Band-Aids?
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Pretty cool. So, Steve, I hear we got a quiz.
Yes. So, and I dropped it on the floor. We've
I'm
heard
not
a lot
ready for this.
Thread.
We've heard a lot from you, Wendy, and we can tell that you're a really capable scientist. And so now's the part of the show. So we're going to see how capable in non-science things you are.
I don't know
so
about
we have
that.
a pop quiz. These are random trivia questions, and I think you'll get some of these. And so
I
we'll
want to
start
see
off.
the questions.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, I'll keep my mouth shut, but I might chime in. I'm much better at the
All right. So you haven't
quiz,
seen these?
I have
Oh,
not seen
I-
it at all.
Okay. So let's start out with the first one. What is the name of Mickey Mouse's dog?
That I don't remember. I'm like Pluto. It is Pluto.
There we go.
I'm like-
Now, as a new mom, which congratulations once
Thank
again.
you.
I have a small niece, and I'm just going to go out on a limb and say there's going to be a lot of Mickey Mouse Clubhouse in your future. So I think you're going to come.
I'll
really
know all the
well-versed.
characters.
I'm pretty confident. You can't get away from it.
All right. Question number 2, and this one you
Okay.
better get right.
All right.
Name all 4 houses
4?
of the Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry.
Oh, great. Gryffindor,
Good.
Hufflepuff,
Bam.
Good.
Slytherin, and I'm trying to think of the third one. I'm thinking like Jigglypuff, but it's not. That's a Pokemon. I'm like totally
Second
mixing
Pokemon reference.
mixing it up.
It's a
Ravenclaw.
Very good.
Ravenclaw.
Awesome.
Ravenclaw.
All right. Aside, which house would you be in?
I think maybe Hufflepuff. Maybe.
Interesting.
All right. Pretty
What
good.
about you?
Cedric Diggory. Or something.
All right. What was the title of Conway West's debut album in 2004?
I don't know.
Do you know?
I got this one. College Dropout.
I didn't know that.
I
one.
have never heard of that.
And my favorite question on the list. What is Michael J. Fox's middle name?
I don't know. Joseph, Jordan.
John?
Andrew.
That's a stage name kind of thing.
That's the trick question. That's
Yeah.
the trick
Was
question.
there like a focus group that decided that, if we throw a J in the middle, that's what's going to get you in Back to the Future? Like, that's what's going to pull it all together?
I have no idea.
Is it like Jandrew? Like, does he have
No,
the
it's
Andrew like mixed in? Like, it's like.
I like it. Michael J., we like your.
And
your
finally, for our last question, how many hearts does an octopus have?
Oh, this is like goes back to. Let me
You knew
see.
this at one.
I had taken a zoology course, but I don't remember because like are we talking about just the heart in general, and not like the chambers and?
It says.
It says hearts.
The quiz
Okay.
is all knowing.
So
It says
I don't-
hearts,
I-
plural.
I don't know if it's plural, then maybe 3. I don't.
That's correct.
Oh, I didn't. I just.
Why does an octopus have 3 hearts?
And why did you know that?
I don't know. Like I just know that it's very smart. I just know the octopus are very
Clearly
smart,
you
but I
are
didn't know
smarter
if
than the rest of
they
us,
needed
Wendy.
the
Good
brains, the heart to
I
circulate
suppose
the.
if you got a lot of arms flying around,
You need
that
the
you're gonna need a lot of blood.
I don't know.
Jeez. Okay, so Wendy, we're starting to run a little low on time here.
Okay.
So we got 2 more questions. For
Okay,
you.
I'm ready.
I'm going to lead off with the first one here. The cat's out of the bag
Mm-hmm.
because I was going to kind of put you on the spot. But you are a new mom. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Do you have any words of advice or anything that has now popped into your head
Mm-hmm.
about being a new mom that you would never have even fathomed prior to having a baby?
Having a baby, I would say, kind of like I didn't like this about one of my parents is that it's kind of like an experiment. So you
Spoken like a
you
scientist.
kind
realist
of yes,
experiment.
it's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life with the lack of sleep because I've never pulled an all-nighter, and so you kind of have to learn as you go. Like nothing will prepare you. I had read the books. Like the Baby 411 book. I have the apps. I'm on the websites, and don't Google things because it will frighten you. Like everything turns to cancer.
Well,
There you
that's
go.
true.
But basically, if something doesn't work, you try something else. And luckily, my baby's very, I guess she's very good to me. She realizes that I have data to analyze, and so she doesn't.
It's piling up. As
yeah.
we speak.
So she doesn't cry a lot, but I guess like I have a notebook I have hidden to the side. I basically keep track of all the volumes that she drinks, the time like that she had soils diapers, and so it's kind of we probably will plot it to see how she eats.
Such a scientist.
But having
See if
a
it reaches
yeah.
significance. Makes sense.
But there's no real like formula for taking care of a baby. It's kind of every baby is different, individual, and with parents you kind of have to figure out between work, school, sleeping, eating. You have to make sure you put in a time schedule to shower, and sometimes you sacrifice breakfast for sleep, but you make it work. So advice is just you'll be fine.
All right, Steve, you want to hit her with the big
yes,
one?
our last question. We like to end with this question because we're all about science communication. So what does science communication mean to you, and why do you think it's important?
So for science communication, I would say, like I mentioned before, Bill Nye was one of like my biggest science idols. And so for science, a lot of it's like jargon. You think of like math, you think of like big words, and it's very frightening. But if it weren't for people that were able to communicate science effectively and well to me, I think I would never have picked it up. And so in addition just to seeing like cool demos, being able to understand what's behind the demos is what's really important. And so for me, I want to be able to kind of deliver that back to anybody else who might be, thinking of on the fence, like, should I go into science? Should I not? I'm scared. Don't be scared. Science is not that bad.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, Wendy, I think you can she leave the hot seat now?
Oh yeah, I think
she's good.
you did a great job.
It's very warm.
Well, thank you very much, Wendy, for joining us today. Steve, we learned a lot.
I learned a lot.
The jargon police made an appearance.
Once.
Still a little nervous, but I think at this point we might be in the clear. So with that, once again, everybody, thank you for joining us today. We're going to be doing a lot more of these. You're going to be seeing a lot more of this face. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But in all honesty, thank you for tuning in today. We are once again Science Unplugged from the Allen Alda Center for Communicating Science. And please, get out and learn all you can about science. It's really, really neat. And come on back, because this show has divalents, octopus hearts, Hufflepuff, hydrogels, baby advice. We got everything you need. So with that, thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you.